My name is Amal, and I'm a 33-year-old Christian psychiatrist from Algeria. But just 2.5 years ago, I was a devout Muslim. My life was one of structure, faith in Allah, and a promising career. Yet beneath the surface, I carried a silent burden, pain that came with my diagnosis of ovarian cancer. I still remember the doctor's words, clinical and cold. It's advanced. The treatments didn't work. The hope I clung to began slipping through my fingers like sand. In those dark moments, I heard whispers about Jesus. Not from friends or family, we were Muslims, and such a conversation was unthinkable. But through videos that popped up online, testimonies of people who had encountered him. Their stories stirred something deep within me, though I didn't understand why. At first, I dismissed them, thinking this isn't for me. But as the weeks went on and my condition worsened, I couldn't ignore the pull. One evening in July 2018, alone in my room, I came across a testimony like this one. The person spoke with such conviction about Jesus' power to heal and save. Their words gripped my heart. I had spent years praying to Allah without ever hearing him respond. Could Jesus really be different? Was he listening? I needed to know. On the night of July 11th, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I knelt in the middle of my room, trembling with desperation. I spoke words I had never dared to say before. Jesus, if you're real, show me. I don't want to just hear about you. I need to see you. I need to know without a doubt that you exist. My plea came from a place of raw pain, both physical and emotional. For 20 minutes, I begged, weeping into my hands. But nothing happened. Disappointed, I got into bed. As I drifted into a restless sleep, a voice broke through the silence. It was clear, firm, and unlike anything I'd ever heard. Turn around. My eyes shot open. Was I imagining things? I stayed still, heart pounding. Then the voice came again, stronger this time. Turn around. I turned. And there he was. Jesus stood before me, radiant and majestic. His presence filled the room, yet it was his eyes that captured me. They were not like ours. They held galaxies, eternity itself, yet they pierced straight through my soul. In his gaze, I felt both exposed and completely loved. Every fear, every ounce of doubt melted away. He didn't speak, yet I understood him. His love was infinite, overwhelming, and utterly undeniable. Tears streamed down my face as I reached out, but just as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. I sat there in stunned silence, unable to process what I had just experienced. The next morning, I woke up with one goal: to find a church. Jesus was real, and I needed to follow him. Little did I know, my journey had only just begun. The morning after my encounter with Jesus, I was restless but determined. I couldn't go back to life as usual. I scoured the internet, searching for a church where I could be baptized. But I was cautious. I didn't want anything associated with Catholicism or Protestant traditions. I prayed for guidance, and somehow, my search led me to a church called Jesus Christ Church in Cameroon. Though it was far from home, something inside me knew this was where I needed to go. 2 days later, on July 13th, 2018, I stood at the edge of the baptismal waters. My heart raced with anticipation. I had never believed in spirits before, but as the pastor prayed over me and immersed me in the water, I felt something shift. As I came up, I gasped, not from the water, but from the weight being lifted off me. I saw them, dark, shadowy forms leaving my body, dissipating into nothingness. I was stunned, yet at peace. That evening, I knelt to pray in my home, trying to process everything. As I spoke to Jesus, something extraordinary happened. My words turned into a language I didn't understand. It flowed effortlessly, pouring out of me like a rushing river. Later, I learned this was the gift of speaking in tongues. I prayed in this mysterious language for 3 hours, feeling an intense energy rise within me. By the time I stopped, I realized something astonishing. For years of chronic pain, a constant companion in my battle with cancer, was gone. Completely gone. I couldn't believe it. Could I truly be healed? To confirm, I booked an appointment with my gynecologist for July 17th. When the day came, I walked into his office with a strange mix of faith and doubt. He ran every test imaginable: tumor markers, pelvic MRI, and ultrasounds. I told him confidently, "I'm healed." He smiled politely, skeptical but kind. "Let's wait for the results," he said. When the results came back, his expression shifted to one of disbelief. "Amal," he said slowly, "there's nothing here. The tumor markers are normal. The MRI shows no trace of cancer. Even your ovaries are functioning perfectly, like nothing ever happened. He shook his head, then ordered another ultrasound, just to be sure. The second test confirmed the first. I was completely healed. He stared at me, speechless, before finally asking, "What happened?" "I met Jesus," I said simply. "He healed me." For a moment, he just looked at me, processing my words. Then, as if breaking protocol, he leaned in, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "God will protect you. But be careful. Most people won't understand this." But I didn't care who understood. The world needed to know that Jesus was alive and that he was still healing and saving people. After my baptism, I felt a new purpose burning within me. I left my practice in Algeria and accepted a position in an emergency room in Cameroon. It was there that I began to witness miracles unfold, not just in my own life, but everywhere I went. Patients would come in with hopeless conditions, and somehow, by the end of my shift, they would leave with renewed health. The other doctors and nurses couldn't explain it. Some chalked it up to coincidence, while others whispered about divine intervention. I knew the truth. Jesus was working through me, and nothing could stop him. But my transformation wasn't just about miracles in the hospital. It was personal and deeply challenging, especially with my family. They didn't understand the changes in me, and I couldn't blame them. My faith, my joy, my hope, it all seemed foreign to them. And yet, I couldn't stop sharing what Jesus had done for me. One night, as I prayed for my family, I remembered the vision Jesus had given me after my baptism. In it, I had seen myself baptizing my father. At the time, it seemed impossible. He was a devout Muslim, 80 years old and set in his ways. But I held on to that vision, trusting that God had a plan. The miracles I was seeing in the emergency room were nothing compared to what God was about to do in my own home. A few months later, I returned to Algeria to visit my family. I knew this trip would be challenging. My family members were devout Muslims or staunch atheists, and I wasn't sure how they'd react to my newfound faith. Still, I prayed for an opportunity to share Jesus with them. When I arrived, my uncle was struggling with severe osteoarthritis in his knees. He could barely walk without limping, and his pain was evident. I told him about my experience with Jesus and how he had healed me. My uncle, however, was skeptical and told me not to waste my time. But his wife, my aunt, convinced him to let me pray for him. "What's the harm?" she said. Reluctantly, he agreed. I led him to the living room, away from the rest of the family, and began to pray. As I prayed, God gave me a specific verse about Jesus raising a girl from the dead. I held on to that promise, knowing that Jesus could bring life and restoration to my uncle's body. When I finished praying, my uncle looked at me with wide eyes. "I don't feel any pain," he said, testing his knees. He walked a few steps, then a few more. Soon, he was pacing around the room, exclaiming, "There's no pain at all." A few days later, I saw him running around the house with my younger cousins, laughing like a man half his age. He later told me that his ophthalmologist was stunned during his next visit. His glaucoma, which had plagued him for years, was completely gone. But the greatest miracle was yet to come. My father, an 80-year-old man who had been a devout Muslim his entire life, had always dismissed my faith as nonsense. He suffered from tinnitus, severe back pain, and diplopia, a condition that caused double vision without his glasses. I pleaded with him to let me pray for him, but he refused every time. "You're wasting your breath," he would say. One evening, after much persuasion, he finally relented. "Fine, pray if it will make you happy," he said, his tone dismissive. But as I laid my hands on him and began to pray, something shifted in the atmosphere. I prayed for healing, for peace, and for Jesus to reveal himself to my father. The next morning, my father woke up without his back brace for the first time in years. "The pain is gone," he said, testing his movements. His tinnitus had disappeared, and his vision was clear even without his glasses. For the first time, he looked at me not with skepticism, but with curiosity. "Tell me more about this Jesus," he said quietly. I shared everything, the encounters, the healings, the peace that came with knowing him. To my astonishment, my father asked to be baptized. I called a Christian brother, and together, we baptized him in the name of Jesus Christ. As he rose from the water, tears streamed down his face. This moment was the fulfillment of the vision I'd had after my baptism. God had shown me that my father would come to know him, and now it was happening. Today, my father prays with me. He reads the Bible and shares the message of Jesus with anyone who will listen. But the journey isn't over. My family still wrestles with what they've seen and heard. Some believe, others remain hesitant. Yet, I hold on to the hope that Jesus will reveal himself to them in his perfect timing. To anyone reading or listening, I want to say this: never give up on your family. Keep praying, keep sharing, and never be ashamed of Jesus. He is alive, and he is still working miracles. My life, my healing, and the transformation of my family are proof of that. Jesus is the answer, not just for me, but for you too. Thank you for taking the time to journey with me through this testimony. I hope it touched your heart and reminded you of the incredible power and love of Jesus Christ. If this story inspired you or gave you hope, I encourage you to share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. Anyone who might need to hear this message of transformation and healing. You never know whose life could be changed by hearing what Jesus is doing today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment below. Your support not only helps this channel grow, but also allows us to reach more people who desperately need to hear messages like this one. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, so you'll be the first to know when new content is released. Together, let's spread the good news and bring light to a world in need. Thank you, and may God bless you abundantly.